Hi guys, this is Lashette from Scarlet Moon Creations, and I'm back with my most disappointing books of 2021 video. So these are the books where I had expectations and they were not met, basically. Not going in any particular order except, I guess chronologically the order I read them in. There's only one that's really more disappointing than all the others. So let's start with that one. Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. In my least favorite books video, I talked about how Becca and the Books is my favorite booktuber and we tend to overlap in our reading taste. That didn't really happen here. I will say that even though did not like this book as much, I am still sorely tempted to try the next one because of Becca. I have love for this series. So what is this about? This is a indie published. I can't remember if this is self-published or not, but I bought this book for Pharaoh Feb, Fantasy Romance February, and I'm regretting it. Anyway, Fortuna is the last of her kind. Her and her brother, her parents are gone or deceased, I forget which, and something happens and her brother disappears, and we start the book where she's already been searching for her brother for a while, and she has gotten caught by some slave traders, basically, who are aware of Fairy. She meets another fairy who they come to an agreement that she will help him with an unmentioned task, and he will let her out. So, though she's hesitant, she agrees to this exchange and goes free. She goes back to, waitressing or whatever, and then this dude starts popping up. He will show her where her brother is and help her bring her brother back, free him and bring him back, if she will become his. And that's the bargain that she goes with. Let me tell you, I was not feeling any chemistry between her and this fairy guy literally the whole book. I was just like, what is this? Right? She does some stupid shit literally the whole book, and I'm just like, Fortuna, girl, what? I feel for her situation. I feel like the author really tried to sell us how bad the Fae are, but it wasn't working for me. I think I've read too many really dark Fae stuff that I was just like, this is it. Fortuna winds up in this situation where she has to go through these 3 trials, and I'm just like, this is reminding me of literally every YA fantasy novel at this point, because why does everybody go through the trials? And it's always 3? There is one character. There's a couple of characters that I'm very intrigued by, and I feel more chemistry between Fortuna and 2 other guys. The way it ended bumped up my star rating, just that, and I was like, oh shit. Not bumped up my star rating. That also is a contributing factor when I actually think about this book of, should I read the next one? I think it's Restless Slumber. Should I read Restless Slumber? But let me tell you how my expectations were here. I expected to fly through this book. I expected to love it. I felt like 50% of what I was expecting to feel, and that's a disappointment. Like, this is the most disappointing book of 2021 for me. That I feel so lukewarm about it is just annoying. So the next book I was disappointed by, I feel bad about including, but I have to be honest. Amari and the Night Brothers. This was a new release in 2021. I decided last year to try the whole anticipated releases thing, just going off, basically book covers and quick synopses and go for it. And I started in February, right? This is a middle grade specifically. It's not bad. It just, I don't know. It might be that I'm too old. I wanted to be, spirited away with the magical aspects of this. We're following Amari, who has an older brother who she really looked up to, and the two of them are raised by a single mom in a poor neighborhood, and they're black kids, black mom. This is written by a black author, so its own voices, and it is very well written. This is just disappointing, not bad. Amari's brother goes missing. The police are not really investigating. We start out the book where Amari is going to this advanced school on a scholarship. Her brother went there as well, but since he's disappeared, she has no support. It's mostly rich white kids, and they don't like her. And so they bully her, but not in a way that can really be caught. Now the rich parents are in there like, she needs to be expelled, take her scholarship away. Amari hears a knock on their front door, and this guy like, oh, he just delivered something for Amari from her brother. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, it's in his bedroom closet. So she goes to the closet, finds this suitcase, opens it, and there's this message that enters her brain from her brother. He's basically like, oh, this is where I worked. I've recommended that you attend this academy type place, and no one really knows about it because it's, hidden from the regular mundane humans, but I think you would like it. So go there. And the story continues. I guess this is portal fantasy in the similar to Harry Potter, and it's different. It's cute. It's very cool how the author weaves in real life historical figures and fictional figures into the world, like Sherlock Holmes. Like I said, I wasn't pulled into the magical world. I didn't feel that effervescence that I get when it's just like, oh, this is a whole new world to learn and all of that stuff. I think for me this was too practical, too realistic, I guess. Realistic in that it mirrored the real world too much. I don't know where the next story will go. I don't know that I care. I just thought I would feel more magically transported than I did. If that makes any sense, you guys. Sorry. Okay, so that's why it's disappointing. It wasn't bad. It just, no. The next book, Windwitch by Susan Dennard. This is a YA fantasy series. The Witchlands by Susan Dennard. I picked this up because I this is the third book, I think. And this series I had seen in my local library, and I was interested in giving it a try. And then Jade from JD Ray Reads, she started Witchlands along, a read along of it, and they're fairly short, so I thought, why not? Unfortunately, now I know why not, because, and I think most of the people who are the hosts of the read along with Jade also felt similarly, which is sad. The first book is Truthwitch, and we're following two young witches in a world where witchcraft and magic is prevalent. It's not every single body, but it's prevalent. Everybody falls into different categories. In the backdrop, there is this 20-year truce between various nations, so they won't go to war. The 20 years is almost up, and right now the leaders of these nations are gathering, big and small, to figure out whether they want to sign a new truce or let the last one lapse and go back to war. There are smaller countries in the middle of bigger countries, and it's a whole big thing, right? So that's the political backdrop that we barely dip our toes into, because we have Safi and Isolde, who are the two young witches I mentioned. Safi, who is very impetuous and fiery in personality, she is a truth witch, but that's a secret because truth witches are rare. Obviously, they can tell the truth from a lie. Isolde is a thread witch, which means she can see the connections between people and between them and the earth and them and, I guess, spiritual whatever in that world. They're best friends, and they have this thing where they sneak off from their watchers and rob people. And we start off Truthwitch with them robbing someone that they didn't plan to. Someone was more important than they thought, and who has a blood witch in their carriage. And a blood witch is someone who can tell what kind of witch other people are when they come in contact with their blood. They find out about Safi, and now the hunt is on for the young truth witch who's running around the city. Let me tell you something. I didn't mind the first book. The second book was kind of meh. The third one, though, I'm just like, why are we doing this? Windwitch is the third book. There is a novella between 2 and 3, so there's not enough consolidating in these books. Like, nothing's coming together plot-wise. These guys are all running around. There's a weird thing where we find out this series is supposed to be adult, but the way it's written is very young adult. The characters are interesting, it's just that they themselves are not really aware of the details of the rest of the stuff that they're involved in. But they're being manipulated by the your people, and situations that they weren't alive for. We're finding out little by little how the world works as they, come across other people and situations, but that's not their main focus, so that's not the main focus of the books, and it's very frustrating. And I really wanted to like this series. I like the premise of the magic systems and the witchcraft and all of that. Being a witch myself, I'm always drawn to these things, but this was like, this should have been better. I'm disappointed. And by book 3, we still, like, come on. Like, they're fighting little battles while there's a whole war going on in the backdrop, and we don't really get that. It's disappointing. Next book I was disappointed by was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is book 2 in the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. We're following 3 Black British sisters. The chemistry in book 2, where we're with Dani, I enjoyed as well. The couples, their chemistry, great. The settings, awesome. My problem with this is I expected it to love it more. Dani and Zafir are a good couple. The disappointment comes in with the spiritual backgrounds. So I expected to love this even more because I found out that Dani is a practicing witch, a modern day witch, and she's not really, like, I feel a lot of people really like that aspect of her because they have no frame of reference of what that is in real life. And I'm not saying no one does what she does, but it was so, nah. No, girl, no. From an intelligent woman who researches things and is very in control of her life, and very, I hate to use the phrase woke, just to be brief about it. I didn't like that, and that disappointed me greatly, and it felt like her being a modern day practicing witch was a prop. For Zafir, I kind of feel like his being a lapsed Muslim was the same, because it didn't really add anything to the story. Neither of those aspects did, and I was just like, why? So, I'm not Muslim. I can't really speak to that. I was just, the similarities for both of their spiritual backgrounds, their spiritual practices, not being very present in the story, but pushed in the beginning, really just kind of, I don't know. I was disappointed mainly by that aspect, particularly for Dani. Everything else was okay. So I had bigger expectations, but nowhere near as high as like Fortuna Sworn. The next book I was disappointed by was Desperate Measures by Katee Roberts. This is book 1 in the Wicked Villain series, a series of books that she's written basically kind of turning Disney stories on their heads. I don't want to say retellings because it's not exactly that. Basically, the premise is, what if the Disney princess wound up with the villain. And yeah, but this is told in a very modern day setting, and these guys are not necessarily villains in these books, but they kind of are. So in this one, it's Jasmine and Jafar, not Aladdin. Aladdin's a bad guy in this, and a worse bad guy than Jafar was. Obviously, these are not based on the original folklore, mythology, or fairy tales that the Disney movies were based on. It's based on the Disney movie versions. The Sultan, Jasmine's father, runs like this huge syndicate, basically. He treats Jasmine like chattel, basically, And we start off where he's decided to marry her to Aladdin, and because, you know, Aladdin's gonna give him money or something or whatever, they've come to this agreement, right? She doesn't want to marry Aladdin. And it turns out she doesn't have to, because Jafar, Sultan's right-hand man, decides to kill him and take over his whole enterprise on his own. Jasmine and Jafar have like some chemistry. They've had chemistry, but they don't really interact too often. But when they do, it's chemistry. Trigger warnings for things like rape, gun violence, sexual violence, I guess, to an extent. Some BDSM light things here and there. This is like erotic romance rather than straight erotica, but it leans very heavily on the erotica, and I was kind of disappointed because I thought I would get more plot. Obviously I felt the chemistry between Jafar and Jasmine, but this was way too short. I thought the way their relationship was building kind of slow burn, like, yeah, they had sex in the beginning and it was consensual non-consent, I'll say, in the beginning. This series is very hyped, and I think partially I wasn't in the mood for like a really short erotic romance. It's just a thing. Like, sometimes I don't want to read all those sex scenes. I feel like the way it ended wasn't really satisfying to me. Like, it was, but I was just like, oh, come on. I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't surprised. I don't know. I feel like there should have been more build-up. I wanted more of this book. I wanted more of the plot. I wanted more of her coming into her own, and more of Jafar, like, you know, groveling, I guess. A slow build-up of groveling, right? I wanted more character growth for Jafar in particular, because he was kind of stupid in his expectations for her. Like, oh, he likes her because, you know, she thinks for herself, but she can't leave the house on her own either, and he won't allow her to go anywhere without him, and she has to wear what she wants to wear. And I was just like, dude, are you going to be the alpha male or what? I don't know. So I was disappointed, but now I know what I'll be getting. The last book that disappointed me was Begging for It by Lilah Pace, and I guess somehow this list went down in how disappointed I was, because this is barely disappointing at all. This is book 2 in the Asking for It duology by Lilah Pace. This is a dark romance duology. Trigger warnings for rape and sexual assault is talked about a lot. It is a major theme in this duology. We have a character who has been raped, particularly molested, and we have a character who was made to watch. We also have the main thing, which is a couple who has built their relationship off of the both of them really enjoying the sexual fantasies or acting out the sexual fantasy of sexual assault, consensual non-consent. We have a woman who recently gotten out of a very nice relationship. She goes to a friend's party and her ex-boyfriend is there. He gets drunk and drunkenly reveals, while everyone else at the party can hear, that he's sorry that he could not do those fantasies with her. Another man that works at the university that she works at, not in the same department or anywhere near her, overhears and approaches her to start this relationship by letting her know that he is also into those kind of fantasies. So this starts off as a sexual relationship and eventually becomes a romantic relationship as they start to realize that they can't, keep things completely separate. They're both dealing with trauma. that at first neither is aware of for the other, and it, you know, comes out by the end of the first book. The second book, I just had expectations for family drama and to be more focused on his thing with his stepdad, and for there to be a more concrete conclusion to that situation, and there wasn't. That was my only disappointment, and it barely took away from any enjoyment, so I don't even know why I'm putting this on video, but I had it on the list, so why not talk about it? So those were my most disappointing books in 2021. I did not hate them, as I said, with all except for one. I would continue the begging for it. There's no more books. That's it. I've read it. But the others I would continue except for the Witchlands series. And honestly, the Windwitch, that was a placeholder for the entire series except for the novella, book 2.5. The others I will at least give the next books a try. Probably, possibly, maybe. They're not high on my list. So let me know what books you were disappointed by in the comments down below last year. Did we match up anywhere? Have you read any of these books? What were your thoughts? And were you disappointed like I was? I don't know. Leave me a comment down below. If you have gotten this far, leave me a thumbs down emoji. And like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you are new. Hit that notification bell so you know when my most surprising books of 2021 is coming out and my favorite books of 2021 is coming out. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.